All right, so as the title suggests, I'm giving you all my top 10 list of what I think are like my sort of top 10 timeless classic, freshy fragrances that I have in my collection. So these are fragrances in some cases that, came out well over 10 years ago and are still going strong. Some of them maybe have, been unfortunately discontinued. And then some of these fragrances are also fragrances that are still being produced, but that I think will be, still be here and being produced, well past now. All right. So I'm going to start the list off with a fragrance from Creed. And this is like from one of their, I can't remember exactly what the name of the line is, but it's like one of their really, really high tier lines. This one is Pure White Cologne from Creed. All right. And so this fragrance, it's always been one of my favorite sort of, Creed scent profiles for sure. Obviously you have stuff like Aventus, you have stuff like Silver Mountain Water and Millesime Imperial and stuff like that. But, to me, this Pure White Cologne scent profile, this is just, it's very, very, the best way for me to kind of describe this is it's like one of the most high tier sort of, clean, fresh, citrusy, floral types of scents. Definitely, I mean, they made a masterpiece, I would say, when they made this fragrance for sure. The downside to this fragrance is obviously it doesn't really last that long, at least on me anyways. It's like a fragrance that only lasts a couple of hours on me. And the projection is not really that great either. Now, one thing that I've kind of noticed about a lot of Creed fragrances that I've bought over the years is it seems like with Creed fragrances, at least for me anyway, a lot of times what happens is when you first get them, at least for me anyway, when I first get these fragrances and start wearing them, the longevity and the projection is terrible. But then like if you go back to them years later, that same bottle will, start giving you like really, really good longevity and projection. That's definitely one thing that I've experienced with, my bottle of Asian green tea. I remember when I first, experienced that fragrance, that was something that was like going off of my skin within like an hour or so. When I wear that fragrance now, I would say at least probably 7+ hours or so of longevity out of that one. So, and I mean, that's a fragrance that I was able to pick up from a friend who, had that fragrance for a while. So that fragrance is years old at this point. That seems to be the case for me with Creed fragrances. So hopefully over the years, as I, kind of hold on to this will become, a little bit stronger in terms of projection and definitely in terms of longevity. But yeah, man, this is like, it's a beautiful scent, man. It's very kind of like citrusy, but yet green at the same time up top. It's a floral scent for sure. And it just smells very kind of fresh, clean, and cold for some sort of reason. Is the type of vibe that I get from this. It does have like a really kind of cold sort of vibe and feel to it, while still being very fresh, very citrusy, very floral. And it just smells overall, it smells very rich for sure. Like this smells like a rich person's scent. So again, man, this is definitely one of the best sort of freshies that I've ever smelled for sure. So again, check out Pure White Cologne from Creed. Next one on the list, this one is from Louis Vuitton. This is Louis Vuitton's Imagniation. So far, I would say that this to me is like their best scent, in my opinion anyway. I know definitely there's some people who would disagree with that, but at least for me, Imagniation is the best Louis Vuitton scent. And I would say that probably like, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that Imagniation is probably their best selling scent. just from the simple standpoint of how many inspired fragrances just continue to be cranked out, for this particular fragrance. Obviously, this has got to be like one of their top, if not the top selling fragrance from Louis Vuitton. And I mean, it's for good reason, man. This is a really long lasting, very unique, high quality, really, really easy to wear fresh scent, man. Very citrusy and tart, in the initial opening. Has a very kind of like soapy cleanness to it from the neroli. It has that sort of spicy tea note in the dry down. It's just, to me, it's the best scent out there right now. I'm sure there'll be something that'll come along within the next few years that'll end up being better than this. But, so far, I would say this is kind of like this era's Aventus, basically. And so that's why it's on this list, man. I think that this is definitely like a trend-setting, type of scent for sure, man. So definitely, again, man, check out Louis Vuitton's Imagniation. All right, next one on the list, this is another fragrance that, there's definitely been tons of different, inspired fragrances that have been cranked out for this one. Not as much as, like Imagniation or Aventus so far anyway, but this has definitely been, a very popular scent DNA here recently. And this one is Ex Nihilo's Blue Talisman. So Ex Nihilo's Blue Talisman, this fragrance is, in my opinion, definitely one of the best kind of fruity floral scents for sure. Starts off like with this really nice pear note that you get, very kind of fruity. The florals in this are not like overly feminine, at least not in my opinion anyway. It definitely gives you like a blue sort of feel, but in my opinion, this is not like your typical like blue style fragrance, not in the sort of sense as like, fragrances like Sauvage or Dylan Blue or Bleu De Chanel. Like to me, it's not like that at all. Even though obviously the bottle is blue, the name is Blue Talisman. This smells, to me, it does smell more than just a blue, blue style freshy type of scent. This does definitely have, a really, really high quality to it. The way that this one is blended, the way that it's done, like I said, it gives you like this really kind of like three-dimensional sort of feel to it. Gives you kind of like this like ethereal cloud that surrounds you when you wear this fragrance. And it's an undeniable scent profile in my opinion. Like I said, I do think that this will definitely be a scent profile that'll, continue on and probably be Ex Nihilo's one of their, probably their best selling scent for like the next 5 to 10 plus years. So performance on this is also pretty good as well. It does project. It does have pretty good longevity, well over 8 hours for, a fresh scent. And again, man, this is definitely one of the better scents that have come out, here recently. So again, man, definitely check out Ex Nihilo's Blue Talisman. All right, next on the list, this one is from Nichane, and this is Nichane's Ambra Calabria. So Ambra Calabria, this is basically, it's a citrusy, green, vanillic, sort of ambery summertime type of scent is, really the best way to kind of describe it. Starts off very, very green. So I would say probably for anyone who is not really into like niche scents or has never really experienced niche scents, this may kind of throw those people off when they initially smell this, because it's just a blast of like, greenness when you first spray it on. But, probably after, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so, that's when this one really starts to develop. You start to get the citruses mixed with the vanilla and the amber, while still maintaining, I would say, some of that greenness in the background. But definitely the greenness that you get in the initial opening of this fragrance dissipates a lot, after that like 15 to 20 minute mark. And again, this comes across as being one of the most, beautiful, again, citrusy, ambery, vanillic scents that you can wear, in the summertime. So this definitely is not like a fall or winter time sort of vanilla amber scent. It's definitely not that. This is definitely more of like a spring and summertime fresh kind of, amber vanilla, I would say, like a citrusy amber vanilla. But really, really an underrated scent. Believe this one has also been out for quite a while now. I don't know the exact release date on this, but I think this one came out in like what, probably 2015, or maybe a couple of years before that. So it's been out for quite a while now, and like I said, it's definitely one of Nishane's best fragrances. Lasts a really long time, well over 8 hours. Gives you really, really beast mode projection, just like any other Nishane does. So again, man, check out Ambra Calabria from Nishane. All right, next one on the list. I definitely think that, this one does get classified as being like an all year round type of scent. And I would definitely agree with that. That's not something that I would argue with anybody. But at least in my opinion, I think that this scent is definitely best worn in the summertime or in the warmer weather, because that's when the scent really smells its best, at least on me anyway. And this is Creed Aventus. So Creed Aventus, one of the most, I would say, iconic scents really that's come out in like the last 15 years or so. So, you're getting that smoky pineapple with birch, a little bit of vanilla, some woods in the background. Like, it's a very, very, masculine style scent. And it's definitely, I would say, this is the scent that got me aware of the House of Creed. Obviously, Creed had been around well before, Aventus was released, but this was definitely the fragrance that put me on to Creed fragrances for sure, was Aventus. And, unfortunately, my luck with, Aventus has always kind of been pretty poor as far as like the performance. Every bottle of Aventus that I've owned, except for this particular bottle and batch or whatnot, has always been, pretty poor when it came to the performance. It's always been like a scent that, like I mentioned in previous videos, it was literally gone off of my skin within, probably 2 or 3 hours or so. And it wasn't nose blindness. Like I know when nose blindness is occurring, and I know what to kind of do to still be able to tell, whether or not the scent is still there. For me, it wasn't nose blindness. It was just that the scent was gone. With this particular batch, and I don't remember the exact batch. I want to say this is a 19, it's either a 19 PO1 or 19 SO1. I can't remember the exact, batch code on it, but so 2019 bottle, basically. This is the only batch of Aventus that I've ever had that has actually performed, well past, like the 7-8 hour mark or so. I basically get like around 8 hours or so of total longevity with this, and I'm able to smell this the entire time for sure. So, definitely not going nose blind to this batch at all. And it's just a very, very enjoyable wearing experience, man. Like I said, a very kind of masculine, smoky pineapple. You're getting like a smokiness from like that birch. You're getting like a woody sort of feel from the fragrance as well. This particular batch seems to be pretty heavy on vanilla, so that's in there as well. It's just overall, it's one of the best scents, created, and definitely one of my favorite from Creed. So again, man, check out Creed Aventus from Creed. All right, next one on the list. This one is from Le Labo, and this is Le Labo's Another 13. So this and Santal 33 are the only Le Labo scents that I've actually smelled. I need to delve more into the house and, you know, get some samples of some of their other scents that, you know, I think would probably appeal to me to kind of see what their house is about. I see a lot of people online kind of trash Le Labo as a house and say that, you know, really they don't have hardly anything at all in terms of like, you know, enjoyable scents. I'll have to make that determination for myself. I'm definitely curious to try out like Bergamot 22, I believe is what it is. And the other one, the Noir, I think is what it's called. That one, I'd be willing to try that one. I think they also have another one called like Tobacco, and I don't know the number of that one. So like fragrances like that, I'd be willing to try those. The only downside though to Le Labo fragrances are obviously the price. So this fragrance, this was like what, 340, I believe. For me, it was worth it because I really enjoy the scent profile. This is again like another sort of fruity floral scent. It has, you know, a really, really nice fresh pear opening that you get. And then it turns into like a floral, woody, kind of like aroma chemical sort of smell. So it definitely is pretty heavy on those like proprietary aroma chemicals, but it does it in the best way possible. Like whatever they did to, you know, formulate and create this fragrance, they really created something special. You know, despite the fact that they're using like a lot of synthetic, you know, chemicals and aroma chemicals and stuff like that, they've really, really done it really well in this fragrance. It is definitely a fragrance that, you know, to the wearer can become, you know, nose blinding for sure. So, you know, it's definitely going to be something that if you want to be able to like really enjoy it, you'll want to kind of spray it, you know, behind your ears and stuff like that. And you don't want to spray it like right on your chest or, you know, nowhere like in front of your nose for the most part. But this is a very long lasting, very beast mode projecting scent that smells very fresh, clean. And like I said, it's basically it's like a fresh, clean, fruity floral. Just very easy to wear, very unisex. You could say slightly kind of feminine leaning, but I still think anybody can wear this scent. And I think anybody would be able to appreciate the way that this smells as well. Again, the price on this is just very, very high. So this is a 100 ml bottle for that 340 price. I believe the 50 ml goes for, I want to say like around 230, 240, something like that. The best place though, if you can ever find it in stock to get this fragrance from, is Costco. So I think at Costco, they have this 100 ml, another 13 bottle for like the same price as what Le Labo sells the 50 mls for. So like around, I think 230, 240. That's where I would try to get this fragrance from if you're looking to get it. Otherwise, you know, I would say probably stay away from buying it secondhand off of people, like, you know, to avoid getting like a fake bottle. If you can find it from like a reputable discounter, like, you know, Joma Shop or something like that, then I would still buy it from there. But I would definitely kind of be careful with, you know, where I buy fragrance like this from, because it is definitely faked a lot, and it's because it's a very high, you know, in demand fragrance. All right. So again, man, another 13. This is one of the best freshy scents in my opinion. Hopefully this is a fragrance that never gets discontinued. Because, you know, if I ever go through this bottle, I'll definitely be wanting to get, you know, a refill on it for sure. And again, it does have pretty good longevity and projection. So again, check out another 13 from Le Labo. All right, next on the list, this one is from Roja Parfums, and this is Elysium. So really, you know, like I always mention, I would say in any video, you can't really go wrong whether you do the Parfum Pour Homme or the Parfum Cologne. I would just say for me, I do slightly kind of prefer the Parfum Pour Homme. To me, it's slightly richer. It definitely has better longevity for sure. The Parfum Cologne does come off a little bit more kind of brighter and fizzier in the initial opening. So I would actually say that the opening on the Parfum Cologne, you could say, is slightly better, and more sort of like invigorating, you could say, than what the Parfum Pour Homme is. But overall, I do like the wearing experience of the Parfum Pour Homme because, again, it does last longer than what the Elysium Parfum Cologne does. But basically, man, this is a there's a lot going on in this fragrance. This is a citrusy, floral, spicy, slightly kind of leathery, fresh style scent. It definitely, it has that, Roja quality that you get with, all of his other scents. I know a lot of people kind of feel like the Roja Parfums house is like overrated. I mean, so far from everything that I've smelled from Roja, I've really liked it. I have. So, I mean, I've smelled obviously, these two Elysiums. Well, actually, I've smelled the Elysium, the O Intense. That one I did not like. So that's probably the only fragrance from Roja that I did not like was the O Intense Elysium. But I've smelled these three Elysiums. I've smelled the Oceania. I've smelled Isola Blue. I've smelled Creation E. I've smelled Vetiver. I love all of those fragrances, like I said, with the exception of like the Elysium O Intense. I still need to try out Elysium Noir because I'm definitely curious to see, how different that is from like the original Elysium. But one thing that I've noticed, with all of the Roja fragrances that I've smelled is they have been super high quality. And I just overall have really liked the smell of each one. So yeah, man, I would say Elysium is definitely, again, another one of those kind of trend setting, classic, timeless sort of freshy scents out there. Obviously, this scent has been, cloned, I would say, just as much as something like, Aventus or Imagination for sure over the years. But, nothing comes exactly, close to, what the original does. I will say that the French Avenue Divin Asylum does come very, very close, though, to the original, Parfum Cologne. It definitely does. The opening is not exactly the same. It's not as high quality smelling, but I would say overall, after you get past the opening, it is for the most part like almost, identical to the Parfum Cologne. But again, this is just one of those scents where I feel like, at the end of the day, if you want that full experience, you do kind of have to just get the original fragrance. So again, man, I definitely recommend Roja Elysium. All right, next one on the list, man. This one definitely, I would say, had like a really good run. Unfortunately, this one was discontinued, or I guess you could say kind of like replaced by another fragrance that smells pretty similar to it, that's within the same line. But this one is Giorgio Armani's Acqua Di Gio Profumo. So this was definitely one of my favorite of all time kind of like fresh aquatic style scents. It's not like any other aquatic scent that I've ever smelled. The bottle, I would say for sure matches like how it smells. It's definitely like a darker style scent that gives it a lot of versatility. So this is a fragrance that you can wear in the summertime when it's super hot outside, and it's still going to give you kind of like that fresh aquatic style feel. This is also a fragrance that you can wear in the wintertime if you want to wear something that is still like fresh and aquatic, but that has enough strength to still be able to push and last all day long, in cooler weather. So, I mean, this is really, to me, this is an all year round, fresh style scent. And the reason for that is I believe it's because of like the incense or frankincense that's in this scent, as well as like the way that the patchouli is done. You know, like I said, it definitely adds you know, some denseness to the fragrance. You know, the way that the aquatic feel is done in this, it's very kind of like, I would say it's kind of like looking into the water at night, where you know you know it's there, but you can't really see through it at all. That's definitely like, that's the type of vibe that I get from this fragrance. And it still has like that really like mass appealing fresh Acqua Di Gio, you know, scent profile to it, or scent DNA. But to me, this was always the best within that, you know, sort of Acqua Di Gio line, was the Profumo. Now they do have the new, I think it's the Acqua Di Gio Parfum, I believe is what it is. That's basically kind of like the replacement for this. I haven't smelled that fragrance, so I can't say, you know, how different that fragrance is. I've definitely seen a lot of people say that it is, you know, slightly different, but for the most part, it's kind of the same scent. So I'll have to kind of get my hands on that scent and, you know, really sort of, you know, see what the differences are. But I'm still holding on to my bottle of Profumo, man, because I really, really enjoy this one. I wish that it was still in production so I could wear it more. But yeah, man, this is all time, I would say, one of my favorite, you know, fresh aquatic style scents. Lasts a long time, well over 8 hours for me. Really good projection for like the first 2+ hours. So again, man, if you can find, you know, an older style bottle with a magnetic cap that's not being sold for like a ridiculous price, then I would absolutely say, you know, try to pick this one up. And again, this is Acqua Di Gio Profumo. All right, next one on the list. This one is from Sospiro, and this one is Sospiro Vibrato. So Vibrato, this is, if you're familiar with Bulgari's Tiger, it's in the same sort of wheelhouse as that fragrance. It smells very, very similar to Bulgari's Tiger. Now, this doesn't smell exactly the same as Tiger does. You know, it definitely is, for sure, is stronger than Tiger. So it's stronger, it lasts longer. Tiger to me it comes across a little bit more sort of drier in terms of like the woods. And to me, Vibrato, you could say, comes across a little bit more floral. Almost sort of like powdery, you could say, in like the dry down. Where, yeah, Tiger for sure is definitely more kind of like dry wood, like super dry woods and ambroxan. This kind of smells more like, and obviously, you know, grapefruit in Tiger. This more so kind of smells like grapefruit, some sort of like white florals, and you could say some woods as well. So, you know, I would say, you know, it is redundant to have both Bulgari's Tiger and Sospiro Vibrato. Definitely is redundant. I think if you have one, you do not need to get the other. Absolutely not. So if you have Tiger, you don't need to buy Vibrato. If you have Vibrato, you don't need to buy Tiger, especially because Tiger, that's a fragrance that you can't really get from discounters. So you pretty much have to, you know, pay full price for Tiger. And I mean, I think typically I've seen Tiger for normally like right around $400 or more. I was able to get this for what, like 150, I believe, as a tester. I think, you know, if you get like the full presentation from a lot of discounters, this will probably be like closer to like 200 or more, or like 220, something like that. but this is a very, very similar scent to Tiger, I would say for sure. And overall, I think if you like that scent profile of, you know, like that very fresh, you know, zesty sort of grapefruit mixed with like the woods, and it's, you know, it's a very kind of like fresh and clean type of smell. I would say this is definitely the best one to get, man. This gives you the best sort of bang for your buck, because again, this definitely, it performs better than what Tiger does, and it costs way less than what Tiger does, while basically giving you, I would say, almost the same kind of, you know, experience. Again, not exactly the same, but for the most part, very similar. All right. So again, man, definitely check out Vibrato from Suspiro. All right. And then the last one on the list, man, didn't necessarily want to put this one on the list because I'm just not a fan of this house anymore for like a lot of different things that I've been seeing them do in the fragrance community. But I do kind of feel like it is undeniable. So this one is Bleu De Chanel's Eau de Parfum. All right. So my gripe with Chanel is like what they've been doing with a lot of fragrance groups, shutting down fragrance groups for people reselling their fragrances that they own. And then also, you know, giving like content creators copyright strikes for just like mentioning the release of like their new fragrance before it came out. That I'm just not a fan of. You know, I feel like whether it's people reselling fragrances online or, you know, people mentioning your fragrance in, you know, videos, they have the right to do that, and it does nothing to me but help your fragrance or your company anyway, in terms of like marketing and stuff like that. It's free marketing, it's free promotion. So I don't know, to me, like the whole thing with shutting down groups for, you know, just reselling these fragrances, especially when these are people selling fragrances that they own and they have the right to resell. That's like telling somebody that they can't resell their, you know, used Mercedes Benz because, you know, it's not coming directly from Mercedes. Like that to me doesn't make any sense. But all that aside, like I said, this is still an undeniable scent profile. This is definitely, in my opinion, probably like the best blue fragrance, you know, scent profile out there. You know, obviously you have the Sauvage scent profile, you have the Dylan Blue scent profile, you have this, you've got all other, you know, I know Prada got into that sort of blue fragrance wave, Coach. This to me, the Bleu De Chanel Eau de Parfum is definitely, it's the best one for sure. You know, it's a very, very nice grapefruit fragrance, grapefruit with a little bit of, I believe, incenses in this one, some woods. You know, it does kind of give you like that blue shower gel, you know, type of feel for sure, but it does it like in one of the best ways possible. Very kind of musky as well. Like Chanel definitely, they created, yeah, I would say, you know, again, one of the best blue fragrances for sure with this fragrance. And I mean, at least for me, this does last a pretty decent amount of time as well. You know, definitely like around that 7+ hour mark or so, with really good projection for like the first hour and a half. Obviously, the price on this fragrance, you're not going to be able to find this at discounters. You know, again, that's another thing with Chanel. They don't really like allow discounters and stuff like that to sell their stuff. So that's another gripe that I have with them. You know, and I mean, obviously they have the right to do all of this stuff, but I don't necessarily have to be happy with it either. But yeah, man, I mean, again, I still have to give credit where credit is due. This is still, you know, years later. And I mean, this is, I don't remember the exact date the EDP came out, because I know, you know, the EDT came out, that was out for a while. And then, you know, several years after that is when they released the EDP. But I still think that the EDP, even right now, is probably about 10 years old or so. So it's been out for quite a long time. And, you know, it still holds up today in, you know, almost 2026 now. So, yeah, man, again, I would definitely recommend this scent profile for sure, despite my feelings about, you know, the House of Chanel. But yeah, man, this is an undeniable scent profile. So again, check out Bleu De Chanel Eau de Parfum from Chanel. All right, and that's the video, man. That is my thoughts on my sort of top 10, you know, trend setting, timeless, classic, freshy scents that I have in my collection. Definitely let me know what you all thought about the list here. Also, I have links in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances, obviously with the exception of the Acqua Di Gio, as this one is discontinued. And also, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you all in the next video.